Now, on July 12th, 1776, just after they had declared independence, the Continental Congress also was trying to create some kind of a proposal for a new national government. And between 1776 and 1777, the Continental Congress drafted the Articles of Confederation. And the Articles are the document that literally created the United States of America. They literally gave that name to the United States of America. But it's important to note that they actually meant that really literally. I mean, we sort of don't think of what that phrase means, but it was meant really literally in the context of what I'm talking about now. What that said was, this was not one consolidated nation. This was United States, what the Articles created. It united some states together. That's what that phrase literally meant. As John Adams explained later, they never thought of consolidating this vast continent under one national government, but instead erected a confederacy of states, each of which must have a separate government. So when 13 free and independent states had defeated England and now had to figure out how to come together, they were not thinking of one big unified republic at this point. They really definitely were not. And that's the Articles of Confederation went along with that thinking. It did not create one unified government. It did not bond people together in anything other than a loose league. The Articles created a loose league of individual republican governments. Now, if, as the founding generation assumed, absolute power corrupts absolutely, then the Articles of Confederation was a very virtuous form of government. Because under the Articles, the Confederation Congress had almost no power to enforce its will at all. The newly created Confederation was almost more of a United Nations than a central governing institution. As the Articles themselves stated, they were intended to create, quote, a firm league of friendship for their common defense, the security of their liberties, and their mutual and general welfare. The Articles were basically a pact between 13 sovereign states which agreed that certain powers would be delegated to this new central government for very specific purposes, but these 13 sovereign states retained all powers not expressly delegated by them in the Articles. So under the Articles, the national government consisted of a one-chamber national Congress elected by the state legislatures. Each state had one vote. Congress could request funds from the states, but it could not enact a tax of its own without every state's approval. Again, how likely is that to happen? So it could not really make its own taxes. It could not regulate interstate commerce between the states. The Articles did not provide for any kind of an executive branch or any kind of an executive character at all. Instead, congressional committees oversaw anything having to do with finance or diplomacy or military affairs. There was no judicial system by which this new national government could compel allegiance to its laws. So basically, as far as the powers of Congress were concerned, the Confederation Congress was kind of filling the place of the imperial system. It could regulate foreign affairs. It could declare war with foreign countries. It could negotiate peace treaties. It could fix standards for weights and measures. It could manage Indian affairs. It could borrow money, although it couldn't really tax. Basically, the Confederation Congress had power over war and foreign affairs, and the states maintained control over what they called internal policing. Now, it's important to realize that in the context of the time when they were created, the Articles of Confederation actually make perfect sense. I think it's really easy, and I'll talk a little bit more about this on Thursday. I think it's really easy to look at the Articles and say, huh? Like, what were they thinking? How did that make sense? Let's create a government and give it no power. Go! You know, so I think the Articles get a bum rap, basically, in the long view of history. And I think it's important to realize, at that moment in time, they made perfect sense, given the experience of the Revolution and what people had just experienced in the realm of government. Basically, the Articles denied to this new government the very powers and violations that they had seen at the heart of the revolution. So the Congress can't tax. The Congress can't overrule local laws. The Congress can't alter a state constitution. It can't interfere with state judicial proceedings. All of these things are things that we saw in past weeks happening during the course of the revolution inflicted by the British. So this is a really, I mean, again and again, when people are creating constitutions, they learn a lesson and then they act based on that lesson that they learned, and then they look at this new thing they created and go, okay, new lesson learned. Let's make another government because we didn't like that one so much. But you can actually see people experiencing someone, thinking about what that means, and then creating a government based on those immediate lessons. That's what we see here with the Articles of Confederation. And then to avoid an entrenched elite, we don't want any kind of a little aristocracy coming up in America, the Articles did establish rotation in office. So you could not be in office more than 3 of every 6 years. You couldn't be president of Congress more than 1 in any 3 years. And any delegate could be instantly recalled by his home state. Okay, so there we see this weak central government, lots of things it can't do. There were very, very few things that the states were restricted from doing under this new compact. But there were a couple things that the states were not supposed to do. And you'll hear, they're not exactly dire restrictions. Okay, so no state could enter into an alliance or treaty with a foreign nation without the consent of Congress. So New Jersey cannot make a treaty with France. Okay, they need to go through Congress. No 2 or more states could enter into a confederation without the consent of Congress. Okay, think about that one. So New England can't break away and form its own confederation without at least checking with us first. Would you allow us to break off and form our own confederation? No? That would have been an interesting little game. No? Well, try to stop us. But at least it's saying states are not supposed to form their own little mini confederations. States were not to keep warships or troops in peacetime unless Congress deemed it necessary for defense. States were not supposed to declare war without consent of Congress. That's nice. Except where sudden invasion admitted of no delay. Okay, those are the restraints, right? Ooh. Those are not dire restraints. Don't like make war with another country all by yourself. Don't break away from the Articles, from the League of Friendship, and form your own little country. Don't make a treaty with a foreign nation all by yourself. Those are the restrictions on the states. Obviously, none of these restraints place too serious a check on the sovereignty of the states under this compact. So essentially, the Articles of Confederation were designed so that the new nation's central government would not infringe on the states. As I said before, it would kind of fill the hole where the British imperial system had been before, have a very, very limited sphere of actions, not really have a power of enforcement, and leave everything that wasn't specified to the states to control on their own. Now, this is a document that's being drafted in the middle of a revolution. And what we're going to see over the course of the next few lectures is that once revolutions end, and this, remember we started the course by talking about how the colonies came together basically when they needed to defend themselves, and then as soon as they didn't need to defend themselves, they went boo and sort of parted. Okay, so we had this revolution, and the states, the colonies, they come together, they unite, they fight together, and then the war ends. So guess what the 1780s is going to look like? Okay, it's going to look like just what you think it will look like. The states basically all turn their back on each other and say, well, that was nice. Now we're going to do our own thing. Thank you very much. So the Articles is drafted in a time when there's this cooperation going on between the states. What we're going to see in the next 2 lectures is what happens when these Articles actually go into effect. What do the 1780s look like? And that's going to take us on the road to new lessons being learned and yet another government.